everyone, it's Missy, and today I'm going to show you how to can peach jam the easiest way possible. And all I have is 5 peaches. That's enough to get me 4 half pints of jam. And the first thing we're going to do is I rinsed them off, and then we are going to boil them in water. So I got my water boiling for 30 to 60 seconds. And then right after that we'll put them in an ice water bath just to stop the cooking process. And then I have a bowl of Fruit Fresh. And this is a product from Ball, and it's going to help, it's a produce protector, so it helps the peaches from turning brown. And then you're also going to need a slotted spoon to transfer the peaches between the bowls of water. So the water is boiling, and I filled up the water too high, so I could only put 2 peaches in there. As you can see, it's pretty full. But all you're going to do is you're going to count 30 to 60 seconds. And you can sometimes see the skins crack open and you see the yellow flesh of the peach on the inside, and that's what I'm looking for right now. You want to make sure that you're moving the peaches around so they are completely submersed in water, or as much as possible in the water. I have one floating and one on the bottom. And then after the time is up, or you see that the skins are starting to crack, you are going to grab a peach with the slotted spoon, and then you will transfer it to the ice water bath. And I was still waiting for these to crack, and I realized then that the peaches weren't as ripe as I thought, but I put them in the ice water bath anyway after the 60 seconds because I didn't want them to become too mushy on the inside where I wasn't able, I don't want to cook the peaches at this point. I just want to get the skins off. So after I did that with all the peaches, I went and had a scrap bucket for my compost bin, and I am going to skin them. And as you can see, the skins were not coming off, so I had to take a knife and start a slit just to get the skins to start peeling off. And it was quite the process. It started off just little bits and pieces at a time. And by the time I started working with them, then the pieces started getting bigger that I could pull off, as you can see right here. And this was the hardest part of the project, and after this it got way easier. So I just am finishing peeling the peach, and I got that bowl of Fruit Fresh water mixture right next to it, so as soon as I get this peach peeled I can put it in there, because as you can see where I had already started peeling, the peach is turning darker or a brownish color, and you want to maintain that gold color, especially when you have your jam. The brown color, it doesn't look so good. It's okay to eat, but it doesn't look so good. You want to have a nice bright cheery yellow for peach jam. And I'm trying to get as much skin off as possible because the skin has chewy, leathery type texture, so that's why I'm being a little finicky. But there I put the peach in the bowl. I'm just gonna kind of cover all ends that I can so that way the Fruit Fresh gets on all sides. And then I'm going to cut it in half because we have to get the pit out of the inside. So I just follow the seam of the peach all the way around with my knife, and then I'm going to split it open at the stem. Again, my peaches weren't as ripe as I thought they were because it didn't split open that well. The flesh of the peach, when it's ripe, should pull away from the inside pit or pith, and then as you can see, it's still attached. It doesn't really want to separate. So I put that half back into the Fruit Fresh mixture, and I couldn't get my fingers to pull it out, so I grabbed a spoon to try to get some leverage. And the peach was slimy on the outside, but it was hard on the inside, so I had a hard time holding on to it and still getting that out. But it eventually came out. And then there's this white stringy flesh bits on the inside, so I took a melon baller and I scraped along the inside to try to get most of those out because you don't want to eat those. Those are a hard part. And then I have a 13 by 9 inch baking dish, and I'm slicing or cutting the peaches into small chunks. And this is going to make it easier for mashing. And you can see that I still have that red on the inside, and this is the point where I took my knife and I started cutting that off, and I just put them with the peels in my little compost, or in my bucket to bring out to the compost pile, because you don't want to have those in jam either. You don't want to really eat those. They're very hard and they're not that tasty. So and I cut those out when I can peaches, just canning them. So just keep working with that and make sure that you cut the pieces so they're about the size of a quarter or a nickel, and then they should be easy to work with. And yeah, I was really finicky in trying to get all that red off, but the pieces were so juicy, squishy, that they kept slipping and sliding out of my hands, so I finally just had to put them on the plate and just cut them out like that. But as soon as you get most of that off, I was worried at this point that I wasn't going to have enough peaches for the jam recipe, but I still turned out just fine. And once you have, if you can pretend that might have a one layer on the bottom of that pan, then you just take a potato masher and you just mash them like you would if you're making mashed potatoes. And they were mashed really easily, thank goodness. The next bit, I'm going to actually put them in my jam maker. So I got my pectin, my classic pectin, and you put 3 tablespoons of pectin on the bottom of the jam maker, and you try to sprinkle that around as evenly as possible. And this is not the freezer jam pectin. Make sure you buy the one that you can cook with, or the classic pectin. It's the red label on the ball jar. You can also use Sure Gel. You just have to break open and use half a package. And once you have all that sprinkled down around as evenly as possible, you can pour in your 2 2/3 cups of mashed peaches. Try to get that spread out as best you can. And then we are going to add 2 tablespoons of lemon juice, and I'm just using bottled lemon juice. And you just want to pour that as best you can over the top of the peaches. And again, this is going to help add acidity to it for water bath canning, as well as protect it from browning. And to reduce any foam in the jam maker, I'm adding half a teaspoon of butter. And that just goes right in there. And I don't think butter affects the flavor of the jam. If anything, it makes it better, in my opinion. I have my jam maker plugged in, so I'm going to select jam, and then I'm going to select enter, because we do want it to cook for 21 minutes. And you can see that the blades are rotating around and it's already starting to heat. Just make sure you do not put the cover on yet. Meanwhile, I have my auto canner ready to go. I got 4 half-pint jars in there with the water. I'm going to shut and lock the lid, and I'm going to sterilize or preheat my jars by clicking the preheat setting and then start. And that's a 12-minute process, and the jars will be all set to go when the jam's ready. So we came up to our 4-minute warning on our jam maker, and now I'm going to add in the sugar. And I have the sugar pre-measured out, and I'm just pouring that in as evenly as possible. And it's 3 1/3 cups of sugar for this recipe that I'm making. And I'm going to have a link that you guys can see the recipe on the bottom in the description box, so you can check that out. And you want to add the cover after you put in the sugar. So we have the last minute of cooking, and you can kind of see in there, but the jam is busy boiling away. It looks so good, and it smelled really good. I was a little worried because I didn't see the juices in there because they look clear. It showed black because the bottom is black. So I didn't think I was going to have the gold color there for a second, but it turned out to be just fine. So now that the unit is done, I can click cancel, and the CO is just cool off. There's no air with it. That's perfectly fine. So you just leave the unit plugged in, and now you can remove the cover. And now you can see, after the fog goes away, you can see the jam, and it looks really good. There's no foam. It's perfect. And I'm ready to can up as soon as I get the paddle out. And just be careful. Just try to get that jam. This slides right off the paddle. Just don't get it in that center hole in the bowl there. And then, once I put this in the sink, I can go grab a jar, and I can start canning. And I have all my canning supplies laid out, my funnel. I had preheated my lids on the stove and the pot. So I got my funnel, and now I'm going to ladle the jam in there. And you want to leave a 1/4 inch head space at the top of the jar. And just make sure you're using a ladle that isn't going to scratch the bottom of your jam jelly maker. You want to protect that non-stick surface. But as you can see, it looks absolutely gorgeous gold color. I think the jam turned out really well. And I'm trying to work as quickly as possible because I don't want it to set quite yet. I want it to remain as much in the liquid form. I'm just making sure I'm topping off the jam here. And then I have a special tool for my ball canning kit to measure 1/4 of an inch. And then once I have that measured, I go around and the edges to get all the bubbles, as much of the bubbles as possible, to float to the top. Once I have that done, I have to remeasure just to make sure if I need to add any more or not. And that was pretty good. Sorry you guys couldn't see that on the screen. And then I wipe the rim off with a damp cloth. You can also use a damp paper towel. And then this ensures that the lid is going to stick or adhere as best it can to the top of the jar. So don't skip that step. And now I'm going to grab a lid and a rim out of my pot that I had on my stove to sterilize. And then I'm just going to put the lid, center the lid on top of the jar as best I can and press down. And then I'm going to add the rim. And you just want to screw it on so it's fingertip tight. You don't have to crank it on there by any means, but just make sure that it's secure. And then I'm going to add it back to the canner. After you do this with all the jars, you want to shut and lock your lid. And then on the outer canner I'm using jam and jelly setting and recipe number 1. And then I'm just going to click start. And that's all you have to do. You don't have to do any adjustments for any altitude or if it's humid or anything like that. It does it for you. And I got 4 beautiful canned peach jam jars. It is just amazing how fast and easy this is. Like I said, the hardest part was peeling. So thanks for watching. If you have any questions, leave me a comment below.